Hey everyone, it's Movie Lover 120 here, and this episode's not a Halloween horror movie review, but it's a top list. So, we all know next weekend is Halloween, so I thought I'd do this and do a list of a few awful Halloween movies I recommend you don't watch this Halloween if you want to have a good Halloween this year. So, I selected 6 truly atrocious ones, and, of course, with a few dishonorable mentions at the end of it. So, with that being said, let's get started on this top 6 worst horror movies that are bound to ruin your Halloween this year. Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Where do we start? Well, in 1999, there was a little found footage shaky cam movie called The Blair Witch Project. When it was released into theaters, it was critically acclaimed by critics. They viewed it as one of the next generations of horror, and it made a huge profit of over $240 million worldwide at the box office. Now, audiences on the other hand are a little more dismissive of it. Some like it, some just view it as a shaky cam mess, but it actually did invent a new line of horror movies with found footage films like Cloverfield, Record, Paranormal Activity, The Last Exorcism. So, within a year afterwards, Artisan Entertainment saw the success of the movie and decided to follow it up with a sequel. And well, they were gonna ditch, but the original directors didn't want to do a sequel right now. They wanted to wait until the hype died down, but Artisan said no and wanted another huge shot of money, which really shows with this film. So, they decided to ditch the found footage format and go for a more straight up more violent sequel format. Director Joel Billinger wanted to be more of a satire, like along the lines of made fun of the success of it, kind of like what New Nightmare and Scream did with the genres they were making fun of. But they just wanted a straightaway more violent sequel, so this is how we got Book of Shadows Blair Witch 2. The first flaw I will point out: there is no book. No, there is no Book of Shadows at all in this movie. And it barely even feels like it has a connection to the first film. The movie, basically, is about these 4 teenagers who are fans of the first film who go into the woods where the first film was shot with a tour guide, an obnoxious tour guide, to find the filming locations. They end up getting lost, much like the teens in the first movie they watched, and find various places including an abandoned factory. Why is this even sucks? Well, the atrocious writing, the characters show so much artists even decided the characters would be better off being immature idiots who just smoked marijuana and drank alcohol on the expedition project. They're even very unrealistic and one-dimensional weirdos. Like, for example, this one girl named Erica is Woodson. She acts so ridiculous in certain scenes. And we have this annoyingly bad, horribly performance from this sheriff who gives an over-the-top, stereotypical Southern accent. Some countless plot holes, like the flashback where Kim goes to the store and kills the clerk. Apparently, spoilers. Countless continuity errors, including a scene where a van appears and then disappears. It's even boring and not even scary at all, and a predictable plot twist where it's revealed that Kim, the goth girl, believes in witchcraft. That's not really surprising, and some false advertising. Like you see in the poster I posted in this video, one of the characters is attacked in an unseen manner. But there's, in the film, no attack scenes, except when Scream scratches one of the characters. And of course the misleading title Book of Shadows, because yeah, there is no book in this movie, so basically, and it's hardly even a sequel. I think the only redeemable quality is the music is quite decent and scary, but my recommendation is avoid the hell out of this movie and just watch the original, and I guess even watch the 2016 movie if you want a true sequel to that film, but just watch the first one. That one is actually the best one. Even if I don't think it's too big of a masterpiece, it's decent for what it is. I will definitely give it that. Number 5. A Nightmare on Elm Street, 2010. Produced among a line of Michael Bay's infamous remakes in the 2000s, like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the Amityville Horror, The Hitcher, and 2009's Friday the 13th. The final one that would finally be the true blow nail in the coffin was his 2010 adaptation of A Nightmare on Elm Street. So where to start? In 1984, there was a movie called The Nightmare on Elm Street. It was directed by Wes Craven. People loved it. They were terrified of it. And even spawned several sequels, which reception kind of varied, and even a crossover with Friday the 13th. So, eventually, in 2010, Michael Bay and his company, Platinum Dunes, went and produced a remake of the film, much like what they did with Friday the 13th. And of course, this remake sucked. Yeah, basically, this movie craps on everything good about the 1984 original. Basically, the same plot is the same as the first film, and here's why this movie sucks, because hey, Freddy's very out of character. They tried to take it back the more serious way, which I do give credit for, but he went too far, and they made him totally humorous and dull. And whenever he does make a joke, it's forced and unfunny. And they basically even thought it'd be creepier if Freddy were a pedophile who didn't murder the kids as a normal human, but actually molested them. It's not. Basically, it's not even as cool as him killing kids, it's actually disturbing and disgusting. He even annoys the audience by acting sexual all the time. And the acting sucks, and even the ending is. The deaths are so lame, minus the opening kill, over-reliance on jump scares, even very poor jump scares, like, remember that scene where Freddy peeps through the wall when Nancy's like sleeping? Hey, let's just screw that, let's just make it horribly half-assed, and have it all just CGI'd and stuff. Or the bathtub, the claw emerges from the bathtub, let's half-ass that, and just make the glove all dark and stuff, and not even give a darn. Or hey, let's just make Freddy's face look like melted cheese, because even though we try to make him look like a burn victim, and just make him look, his design all hideous. Very poor lighting, even, not helped by the fact that this movie, half of this movie basically takes place at night. An underwhelming climax. The film was even so bad that even Freddy's original actor Robert Englund hated the movie. And director attempted to dismiss all the criticisms as just blame the fanboys just whining, but even the critics agreed with the fanboys that this movie sucked. It almost caused Rooney Mara, who played Nancy in this movie, a talented actress, to basically give up acting because she had a bad experience with this movie. But thankfully David Fincher revived her career. And of course, the very stupid ending, it basically ends with Freddy killing Nancy's mom even though they basically killed Freddy at the end of this movie, but once she gets her mom back to the hospital, then Freddy just magically appears in the mirror and just kills her mom and drags her in the mirror, and then that's it, the movie's over. Yeah, I get this happened in the original, but Nancy was still dreaming. It made more sense, and it was much more effective. Here, it just basically feels forced as this attempt to set up a sequel that thankfully we never got. And it's basically just murdered the Elm Street franchise and pretty much murdered any future slasher remakes in the end. So, and people started doing more original horror films among the 2010 decade. So with that being said, let's move on to number 5.
Number 4. Texas Chainsaw 3D.
Oh god. Another 3D horror film. Guys, when has 3D horror movies ever been good? Like, here's examples. The Final Destination 3D. The 4th installment went 3D. It sucked. Saw 3D. Went 3D at the last minute. Boom. Also sucked. Paranormal Activity. The Ghost Dimension. Was also 3D, and yeah, it was complete crap. And of course, let's not forget this movie. Basically, this film has nothing to do with the reboot movies. The 2 reboot movies, which are way better than this. Yeah, guys, I actually do like the 2 reboot films. And it's more of a direct sequel, or horrible direct sequel, that ignores some way better Texas Chainsaw 2 that came after the original movie. And it's about a young woman traveling to Texas to collect an inheritance. Little does she know that an encounter with a chainsaw-wielding killer is part of the reward. You want to know why this not even sucks, even a great film, and it's just a complete pile of crap? Well, most of the time it relies on cheap jump scares by Leatherface. And some of his scenes in the film have Leatherface's jump scares having this random pig squealing sound. Several characters are miscast, like Bill Moseley as Drayton Sawyer, who looks nothing like Gene Studo, the original Drayton Sawyer. Now, Bill Moseley, I get, was in Texas Chainsaw 2, but even his performance in that film was much better, and his performance in the Firefly family trilogy as Otis Driftwood is far better than this. Alexandria Dario is not even fit to play Heather Miller, who was a baby during the events of the first film, which would make her 40 years old during the present time of the movie. And she looks, acts, and behaves like a woman in her mid-20s. It steals so many elements from other horror films, such as a good one, Devil's Rejects, and another good one, Freddy vs. Jason. The film lacks most of the suspenseful, intense mood of the first one, and to an extent the other sequels and both remakes had. Like, the first one is just outright terrifying. Times, like, even both the remakes are actually decent. Even both the remakes, say what you want about the remakes, but at least those actually try to be Texas Chainsaw films that are actually have pretty good scares, unlike this film and 2017's Leatherface. Absolutely horrendous lighting in so many scenes, and it isn't helped by most of the movie taking place at night, much like with Elm Street 2010. And the next one I'm going to get to, some numerous plot holes, like how did Leatherface even escape the fire unharmed? Terrible, lazy, and ugly looking cinematography, one-dimensional stereotypical characters, especially Heather and her friends who are typical horror movie characters who like to party and drink like a bunch of idiots. An unneeded cameo reference to Jigsaw from Saw, I was seen during the carnival scene, so unnecessary to continue the story from the 1974 film, and to add in more Sawyer family members. This just feels like a disgraceful sequel to the original. A few of the death scenes look incredibly cheesy, like Bert Hartman's death scene where you can obviously tell that the blood is CGI. So many continuing errors, like the sheriff of Nude's name was said to be Jesus Maldonado in the 1974 film, but here his name is Hooper. Well, technically the original film's director was Tobe Hooper, so if they were trying to do a tribute to that, I guess it made so much sense, but it failed. Every character is unlikable. Like Darrell, the hitchhiking man, is revealed to be a thief, or Mayor Bart Hartman, the man behind the killing of the Sawyer family. It's extremely even hard to side with any character in the movie. Like, as the Sawyers are still murderers, but this film tries to paint them as sympathetic, and the people who killed the Sawyers are trying to be labeled heroes, but they just come off as unlikable. Some pointless plot twists, like how Officer Carl Hartman turned out to be Mayor Bart's son. Both the villains and the supposed heroes of the movie are even hard to side with. The dialogue is so cringeworthy, like how Heather throws Leatherface's chainsaw, say, "Do your thing, cuz." Yeah, cause spoilers, guys, Heather turns out to be Leatherface's cousin. Too many pointless and boring subplots that go nowhere other than just to pad up the film's 90-minute runtime. What are these redeeming qualities? Well, some cast members from the original 1974 movie do play roles in this film, like Marilyn Burns, John Duggan, and even Gunnar Henson, the original Leatherface. A few of the deaths and murder scenes can be pretty gruesome and terrifying. Leatherface's mask design is somewhat decent. This is one of the few films that doesn't have continuing errors. It does open events after the original film, looking the same as when it ended. In one moment, it uses the iconic camera noise. The acting can be pretty alright. A couple throwbacks to the film's 1974 predecessor, like Leatherface's iconic door slam. But that's about it. Other than that, this movie's a complete waste of time, and I recommend avoiding it. You want a good Texas Chainsaw movie, watch the original, watch Texas Chainsaw 2, and then watch the 2 remakes. Because that's pretty much all there is when it comes to Texas Chainsaw and Leatherface. But anyway, on to number 3.
Number 3. Aliens vs. Predator Requiem.
Where do I even begin with this crossover movie? This crossover, guys, is a sequel to a bad crossover movie that nobody liked called Alien vs. Predator. Alien vs. Predator was released. It was a PG-13 mess, but still made money at the box office because, well, hey, PG-13 makes more money that way. But, of course, but Fox did listen to fan complaints, so they decided to make the sequel R-rated, and guess what? It still failed. It's definitely not better than the first one. It's worse. This time, the Pred alien at the end of the first one causes the ship to crash, the Predator ship to crash near Colorado, and this one Predator named Wolf finds out about the crash and goes to Earth to eliminate the aliens. And these city residents become trapped in the middle of the battle between the two aliens, forcing them to band together in order to survive. Here's why this movie sucks so much. One, you can barely even see the movie most of the time. Like, the lighting is so dark, you can barely even see, like, anything, basically. And and of course, well, the action sequences all suck, and of course, the Pred alien isn't even that great of a monster at all. Of course, the human characters feel like they belong in a slasher movie, and are not characters you'd find in an Alien or Predator movie. And they're all unlikable, and you don't really even care about them. Well, and plus the gore is really disgusting too. Like, I don't mind gore, but this movie really fails at doing it right. Where do I start? Well, there's a 10-year-old getting penetrated by a facehugger, and an alien bursts out of his chest, killing him on screen, and they don't even cut away either. And then the Pred alien breaks into a hospital, implied he even kills a few babies. Ugh. And then the worst one of all, he goes near a pregnant woman whose water broke, and he penetrates her with a bunch of alien eggs that will kill her fetus. And they all burst out of her after that. Yeah. They never even knew what we wanted when we meant R. We meant like good story, like Alien, Aliens, and Predator 1. That kind of thing. Not just violence and not just brutal kills. That's not why we just want a rated R sequel. I mean, this is just proof that just because your sequel is rated R doesn't mean it's going to be better or good. Maybe studios can someday actually realize that, but until then, Aliens vs. Predator Requiem even sucks. Oh. And they even set up a sequel at the very end, which, of course, we never got. Because, this movie is so bad. But anyway, I just hate this movie so much, and I definitely, if you want to watch an Alien or Predator movie on Halloween, watch Alien because it's horror themed. Aliens is more action, really. And then watch Predator 1 if you want a Predator movie on Halloween. Those are your obvious good picks. And just for Alien, just watch the first two Aliens and just watch the first Predator. Those are easily the best ones. Now on to number 2. And I think you can tell what number 2 is going to be just by this one clip I post. Once again.
Number 2 is, of course...
Oh, no, not the beast! Not the beast!
No, go away. I'm tired of that meme. Seriously. Just let me explain this thing. Yeah. Sorry I posted that again, guys, but I think you already know just the title of the movie is. So, basically, in 1973, of course, we all know there was a film called The Wicker Man starring Christopher Lee. Late actor Christopher Lee. It was, of course, acclaimed by people, and it's viewed as one of Christopher Lee's greatest roles, which I even agree with, and easily one of the best British horror movies. So eventually, several decades later, into the 2000s, Warner Brothers and Nicolas Cage found out about the original and decided to make their own version. Redo their own version and sell it in America. And this was the result. It was horrible. And not just like horrible, it was a special kind of horrible. It was so horrible, it was actually good. Yeah, as in unintentionally funny. Pretty much the movie is this cop gets a letter from his ex-fiancée, who says that she needs help finding his daughter on this mysterious island called Summer's Isle. So he goes to the island, and not knowing that there's a horrible truth that actually awaits as he's there. Let's just say, they actually attempt these scares, like when he dives in and basically the movie begins with a car crash, and that where the cop tried to save 2 people from and failed to, and then it just keeps appearing throughout the whole movie, even though it has nothing to even do with the story at all. well, the awful plot now. Not like the concept of the movie, it's just the spin they did on the plot of the original was that they basically tried to make a few several edits, stuff, obvious foreshadowing. Like you can already tell that he's the sacrifice throughout the movie. Like if they really wanted to kill him so bad, they should have just killed him the minute he arrived. Would have saved us a painful 100 minutes of such hammy acting, like him holding the burned doll and the bees quote, the bear suit whack even. When he whacks the woman in the bear suit and he already punches all the villagers near the end of the movie. And he dives in thinking he found the daughter, but instead he then wakes up back on the dock, or it's all a dream, and is somehow holding one of the car crash victims' bodies, but then wakes up again seeing that he didn't hold the body and just goes, "God damn it!" Yeah, and of course, but if you're looking for a good time with a few buddies and have a drink, go ahead and watch it if you want to roast a bad movie and just laugh at how ridiculously bad it is. Go ahead and be my guest. Until then, if you're looking for a horror movie, avoid this piece of crap like the plague and go watch the original movie. The one that's actually scary. Because you'll actually get a good time with that film over this. Over this one, and plus there's even also again obvious attempts at setting up a sequel when they try to find two new sacrifices, which in the theatrical cut anyways, but thankfully we never got that movie, so since this movie did so bad, now of all the films Nicolas Cage did, this one is definitely his absolute worst. I mean, he has a few Oscar-worthy movies, but this is definitely not one of them. This, along with the two Ghost Rider movies, are probably his three worst movies. Just simply, in the end, just avoid this one and just stick with the original, like with most remakes anyway.
And the number one worst horror movie to ever watch on a Halloween night is Craptivity.
I did not want to have to talk about this movie again, but here we go. Now, remember when those two movies, Saw and Hostel, came out? Yeah. When those two movies released on those years, they were both profitable, like hugely profitable at the box office. When Saw came out, it was mixedly received by critics, but was critically acclaimed by audiences, and after finally getting an original, more fresh horror movie for once, and made over $103 million worldwide. And was the most profitable horror movie in a very long time since Scream. So of course, Saw got a franchise, with several sequels. And is often hailed as a great classic in the horror genre to this day. Hostel, on the other hand, is more of the torture movie. Basically, Hostel relied on those three backpackers going to Slovakia and getting tortured for profit by this rich club called the Eli Hunting Members. Hostel was released in January 2006 and made over $80 million worldwide at the box office, and of course will spawn one theatrical sequel and one direct-to-DVD sequel just a year after it, much like with Saw. Well, all Saw sequels were theatrically released. Only one Hostel sequel was theatrically released. So, of course, but during that whole time, director of Killing Fields, Roland Hofe, was trying to make a thriller movie. And of course, it was called Captivity, and it was supposed to be just more of a simple mystery thriller movie, where most of the movie would focus on these two cops focusing on a model getting kidnapped by a psychopath and waking up in a cellar, and two cops trying to find her. That was how it was supposed to go, but eventually, there was a bad side. It was being made at a company called After Dark Films. And if you're wondering who they are, guys, they're the company that made this horrible festival called 8 Films to Die For. aka the After Dark Horror Fest. And the festival that literally only lasted 4 years, and none of their films were good. But enough about that. Enough about that garbage. Let's talk about this garbage. When I say bad things of After Dark films, I mean its owner. Let me just say this. Last minute torture shoots. So, as if for wondering how this movie ended up being so bad, it's because Courtney Solomon found the actual cut and felt it wasn't very convincing enough because it wasn't much gore in it. So, Courtney Solomon ordered Roland Hofe to reshoot the whole movie, and basically decided to add in a bunch of unnecessary last-minute forced torture scenes. And by torture scenes, I mean an acid shower, even blood-blended body parts in a drink, even all that stuff. Basically, this version we got was a torture film. And it even had torture marketing. Like, there was this billboard containing a bunch of unnecessary torture shots, like a woman getting abducted, woman in a cellar, woman being tortured, and then lying on the table dead. And yes, guys, that woman in the billboards is the model, aka the protagonist. But of course, with all the bad qualities aside, the model and the guy she's trapped with aren't even great characters. Plus, they don't really care about them, and plus, there's a predictable plot twist because, well, the dude is the guy who kidnapped her. In the end, how convincing. Basically, what this movie does is it takes the plot of Saw and takes all the shock stuff of Hostel, combines them into one, and they make it garbage. Yeah, basically, in Saw, you had some decent characters. They weren't really great characters, but they seemed like characters you could at least care about. But in Captivity, they decided that the two police characters would just be these irresponsible idiots who just wanted to watch a game after the lie that the model was not in that house. And gotcha, boom, they get killed the minute they find the model on one of the broadcasts. So yeah. This movie's just another Saw and Hostel wannabe, and there's a difference when it's two versions. There's an uncut and there's a theatrical version. The theatrical version ends with, of course, her, spoilers, escaping, and it fades to black as she's just walking on the sidewalk out of the whole area that house she was being held captive in was in. But in the unrated, they thought it'd be much creepier and better if she were now becoming some Punisher-style vigilante who tortures and kills criminals. I mean, just why? And P.S., that kill she does at the end is literally the opening kill they used in the movie. Which basically, congrats, you just spoiled your own ending in the beginning. Great job, guys, but I'm just done talking about Craptivity at this rate. If you want to hear me trash Craptivity more, you can go watch my angry review on it. Until then, if you want to watch a torture movie this Halloween, watch Hostel or Saw. And that's just about it. Now, before I end this video, I want to get on with a few dishonorable mentions first.
All four of the Grudge movies. The Japanese films are like okay, but they're not good horror movies, but the American remakes are just so laughably bad. Psycho 1998. Why would you disgrace an Alfred Hitchcock original? Just why? Rec 3 Genesis. Remove all this great stuff that made the first two so great and just make it a horror comedy vibe and fail miserably at it. AVP, Alien vs. Predator. Now, this one was bad too, but AVP Requiem is miles worse. The Descent Part 2. Yeah, let's just butcher the UK ending, have a happy American ending just so we can make this piece of crap. And finally, Megan is Missing. The worst found footage movie ever made. They claim is so scary, but it's really not and just laughably bad.
And that'll be it for this video, guys. So, if you want to have a really god-awful Halloween this year, those are your picks to ruin your Halloween night. So, next weekend. So yeah. But if you want a good Halloween, avoid these pieces of crap like the plague, and just go watch something that's actually good. But anyway, guys, that'll be it for this video. Thank y'all for watching, and if you like this and want to see more, and don't forget to like and subscribe to Movie Lover 120.